Welcome to me building $1 billion business in public. We are just shy of $10 million, meaning we've got only 990 million to go. Without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So as always, we're going to start off with some basic YouTube Q&A, where I'll answer some of the questions that you got left in the previous videos. So if you want me to answer your questions, just drop a comment down below. Next, I'll get into the topic of today's video, which is what I learned from failing so much as a software engineer. More specifically, what I learned from failing so much when I was becoming a founder as a software engineer, because some of you might not know, I have it on my website, but I failed a lot before I had my first success. And then, last but not least, talk a little bit about strategizing about the channel and a few other things. But first and foremost, let's dive straight into the YouTube Q&A. Okay, there we go. So we've got 2 comments over here. Thanks for the response. No problem, DRC. Okay, let's go. Ruben, thank you for your answer. No problem, Ruben. Glad you enjoyed it. And then DRZ asks, thanks for the response. How do I actually improve my social communication skills as an introvert? By introvert, I don't mean it to be a limiting label on myself, but I just know that I am one. My strength is that I'm a very good listener and good with one-on-one conversations, but terrible in a group talk. Well, you already have the most essentially important skill for listening. Communication. It's listening. Whenever people say they're really good at, one-on-one talk, but they suck at group talk, that just tells me one thing. They get intimidated by a number. Now, this can be oftentimes a status thing, feeling out of place, or whatever the case. But actually, if you can do one-on-one and you can listen properly, group talk is even easier. Because you have to understand how group talk works, right? The fundamentals of a group is that you have a few people talking to one another. And usually the way it goes is everybody wants to say something. So everybody is waiting for their turn to speak. They're not waiting for the other person to finish. They're simply waiting for their turn to speak. They're not actively listening. So one of the biggest ways that you can differentiate yourself in group talk is if you just actively listen. Because most often what ends up happening is, let's say this person's going to speak, and then immediately after, let's say one of these guys will go first. Or second, I should say, right? But it's very rare that somebody will speak, and then somebody else will ask a deep question about it. Let's say, to keep the conversation going. Sure, you might have, oh, what, this and that, like very low surface level questions, but you won't really have any deep type of questions that get asked in a group environment, especially in, I would say, 99.9% of cases. It's only a very high level group talk where you'll have this type of an engagement going on. So what do you do then? Well, your best bet, since you're already good at listening, is to actively listen. When you're in a group setting, you don't have to be the one to talk the most. In fact, I would actually recommend you talk the least amount. For most of the time, listen. Try to understand each individual in the group. What are their names? What are their likes, dislikes? How do they carry themselves? How do they perceive themselves? What do they want other people to perceive about them, right? Do they care about status? Do they care about power? What are the primary things that they care about? Essentially, what you want to understand is you want to understand what makes each person tick, and at the same time, what makes each person like you. So how can you get them to like you? Now, I'm not saying you have to kiss ass, for the lack of a better word, but my essentially entire point is understand who you're talking to. Similarly to how in a business environment, you want to understand who your ideal customer is. So you do market research and all these things. You want to understand the people in a group environment that you're speaking with. And active listening is going to be the best way to do that. But outside of active listening, we'll take a look at them and see how they're standing. What are they wearing? Are they paying attention with regards to eye contact? Is there attention even in the group environment? If you guys are sitting down, what are their seating positions? Are they more so laying back? Are they relaxed? Or are they tensed up? Or are they moved forward, carefully paying attention? Understand the body language as well. There's a lot that it can teach you, right? Just 10 to 15 minutes of observation and listening skills will most of the time get you about an 80% accurate assessment of what somebody wants to show the world, right? And based on that, then you can go in and talk. So the way you would do it is you listen, right? You actively listen, you talk last, or you talk the least unless somebody directly asks you something. And then what you want to do is only jump into the conversation when you actually have something useful to offer. Because most often than not, if let's say you have a 1 hour long group conversation, you're only going to remember 1 or 2 conversations from that group conversation. And it's extremely important that they remember your conversation, that they remember the story you tell, that they remember, oh, that one guy that didn't talk, a lot, but the one thing he said, that story was crazy, or, it was such perfect timing. That's how you want to go about it. Now, if you don't have any stories now, that's for a completely different video, right? But that's how you want to handle group talk. Understand that everybody chases the same things: power, status, right? So if you know how to play that game, you know at least how to kind of play around a group setting, especially if it's like a big friend group. You have to understand who is, let's say, the top dog, who is not the top dog, what's the relationship between them like, what does each person value, right? All these different things. And then keep in mind the language that they use too. Oftentimes, if you mirror the language that they use, they'll be a lot more willing to listen to you. These are all just tools that you can use in a back end of your pocket, right? But frankly, you already have the most important skill, which is active listening. All you really have to do is now add in a few observational skills and only really talk to contribute something to the group. That doesn't mean you don't have to make small talk. Sure, you can, but just understand that that's really all that's going to be holding you back. And I am also an introvert. So for me, staying quiet is actually very easy. I don't want to talk. And frankly, it's been working to my favor because I don't talk, I listen. And then I only talk when I have something good to say or useful to say, right? And when that does happen, guess what? I'll always be the one that they remember, right? So if you want me to dive a little bit deeper into this, I can. Just let me know. But frankly, your introvertness, in my opinion, is your advantage in this specific case. You don't have to chat everybody up and be this charismatic guy, blah, 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 blah. You can be the quiet one in the room. You can be the one that speaks the least, but whenever you do speak, your words carry weight. Your words mean something, okay? People remember you. Trust me, people are way too busy in their lives. They have way too much going on. Everybody's thinking about themselves for them to even pay attention to you outside of that. So whenever you do something that's memorable, you'll be in the back of their minds. So thank you for the comment, DRZ. Hopefully that was a little bit helpful. And I actually, if you can, explain a little bit about what terrible means in group talk, because I think most people, they're pretty good talkers. It's just they're using it the wrong way. Alrighty, so let's get into the main topic of today's video, what I learned from failing so much as a software engineer. So for those of you who don't know, I tried everything under the sun before my consulting firm. What does that mean? Well, I tried e-commerce. I have tried print on demand. Now, I cringe a little when I say I tried, because trying entails, to a certain degree, that you put in effort and you had a plan for the future and you were resilient and you had the courage to act and all these things. Unfortunately, as much as I hate to admit it, for some of these I didn't really quote unquote try. I just tried it one time, it didn't work, and I gave up, right? The only one that I really went back to consistently was e-commerce when I was much younger. So I started when I was 16, like minor entrepreneurial stuff. But the big boy stuff, when my worldview really changed, my perception really changed, started, I would say, in my late teens, 19, 20 range, right? But I failed at e-com, I failed at print on demand, I failed at Amazon FBA, I failed at, oh, I know, what else? There were so many things. It's just I had so many of these guys done, right? Reselling. And then once I actually knew a little bit of coding, I failed at SaaS, mobile apps, crypto, so more so from the development side as well as the consumer side. Just regular stocks. I'm going to put stonks. So I failed at all of these. Now, what does fail entail? Did you not make any money? No, I made a little bit of money in these. I made a little bit of money in e-com. I made a little bit of money from crypto and stonks. So what do you mean by fail? By fail, I mean, had I stuck with them, I could have gotten something out of them. I gave up too soon. Okay? And all of these. The reason I'm bringing it up is to show you that once again, the number one skill that you need to see success is pain, stress, and bullshit tolerance. Okay? None of the other ones even matter nearly to that extent. This is what's so interesting about this, is that in e-commerce, I got to about $2,000 to $3,000 a day in profit selling lighters. This was during the time of, I believe it was Andrew Tate who was blowing up on social media, and he had that iconic Cobra logo or whatever. So I found lighters with the same exact logo, a Cobra logo, and I started selling them. And I also sold other type of lighters too, like Saint Dupont and a few other things, high-end lighters like that. But it got to a point where I was printing, I was running TikTok ads, Facebook ads, I was making a lot of money, enough money where I didn't know what to do with it. Because at the time, I was in my early 20s. No, I was 19, I believe, 19/20, around that range. And I was making so much money that I simply just didn't know, what am I going to do with it? Like, what am I going to do with all this money, right? And then go and behold, manufacturer issues, raises the prices for me so I can't even fulfill it. I end up losing a lot of money. Print on demand, same exact thing. I see a little bit of success, added accounts get banned. I don't try again because it's very hard to get a hold of. Some people I give up on and move on to that next one. FBA, very similar situation. Reselling, similar situation. SaaS, nobody buys my SaaS. Mobile apps, nobody buys my mobile apps. Crypto, I get into it. I have a little bit of success. I try to do my own dev project, and I realize 90% of the crypto stuff that's happening, the meme coin stuff that's happening, are all rugs. And there's an insider group that's doing it, right? So I'm like, okay, I don't want to be that unethical. Stonks, I mean, I had a little bit of success here and there when the market was up and everybody was winning. But when the market was going down, I realized, okay, this isn't just, I can't just put money in and expect a lot of money out in return, right? There's a strategy to this. And at the end of the day, you're playing against the big boys. So I'm like, okay, I have to choose something where I have the advantage in. So this was one of the biggest things that I learned, is that the reason I failed so much, because let me say something about failure. When people say failure, right, they have this overly optimistic view of failure. They have this like, oh, I never fail because I always learn something from it. It always teaches me something. That's bullshit. Like, yeah, sure, it does teach you something, but you don't have to fail. Like, end of the day, failure is a net negative. I don't know why people say it's not. They're just delusional. They're trying to convince themselves otherwise. Failure is bad. Now, if you fail, it's not the end of the world because you actually did learn something. So the next time you try, you have an advantage. That's why the most important thing is being able to tolerate all that and continue persisting forward. However, why fail if you don't have to, right? So that's what's so fundamental that people don't quite understand. They think, well, I got to fail fast. I got to fail a lot to get to success because they've heard it so much. You know, you only need one yes. There's going to be so many no's. You're going to do one yes. Or, you know, each failure brings you closer, one step closer to your success. So people just, I realized, they just try to fail. They just sabotage themselves, which is crazy to think about. They go into things where they don't have a high chance of success. So the probability is low. It's not probable for them to succeed at that, despite their skills, because there's simply higher likelihood of them failing at that. So that's the number one thing about failure. It's you can drastically lower the chances of you failing if you actually get into things where you're uniquely positioned to get into. If I ask myself, why the heck did I get into these? It's because I watched the YouTube video. It had nothing to do with me being a software engineer. Nothing at all. The only things that did have to do with me being a software engineer that I could use my skills at was e-com, obviously SaaS, and mobile apps. But even for these, I, at the time, had no inherent advantage. The only advantage I had over a regular person was coding. But over other software engineers, I didn't, because I didn't have any business experience, right? I was just a rookie. Now, what could I have chosen where I had an inherent advantage in? Well, at least if I was going to do a SaaS, I could have done a SaaS in a specific, let's say, industry where I know somebody, where I'm familiar with, where, let's say, if I have a doctor friend and I see him on a daily basis and he's a mentor of mine or something like that, I could at least make a SaaS in that space. Because sure, I'm still lacking in terms of ability and business acumen, but at least I know in terms of the niche, I have an advantage over other people to a certain extent. I'm fit to solve it. So one of the first things that I learned after failing so much and consistently getting imposter syndrome and thinking I'm not good enough and I don't ever want to go back to a 9 to 5, but this entrepreneur stuff isn't working, what am I going to do? I realized I'm just being dumb, for the lack of a better word, because why am I going into things where my rate of failure is higher? And I realized it was just ego, right? I didn't want to fail. So I tried over 19 e-commerce stores and kept failing and failing and failing. And I realized that it was my ego preventing me from going into something else because I couldn't walk away a failure from it. I couldn't walk away a loser from it. But I made a promise that once I get to a point where I have enough cash flow and I don't have to worry about anything, I'll get back into e-com. And that's exactly what I did do. Later, I got back into it, right? Sure, with a partner this time to do it even more, right? And now it's running smoothly, right? But that was all because now I'm usually positioned. I have the money to run the ads. I have a little bit of knowledge gained. I even have a partner in it who knows a lot more about me, okay? This is what I mean. The biggest thing that I learned from my failures is I didn't have to fail. Didn't have to fail nearly as much. So this is going to be a video about, I learned these things, this is what you should do. No, I'm just going to give you the raw truth that nobody else gives you. I simply didn't have to fail this much. If I only put my ego aside and I took a look objectively at where I am, who I know, and what I know, I could have been where I am today probably at least 3 to 4 years sooner. Simply if I just did this exercise and I put my ego aside. If I saw an enticing video on YouTube that hooked me, somebody building out an e-commerce brand, and I asked myself, should I get into this? And I went through of everything I know. Maybe when I was a little bit better as a software engineer, I could have gone into it because there are a lot of transferable skills. But initially, before I even had my degree, before I even knew anything, there was no point in me getting into it, starting off. Sure, it was a good experience, don't get me wrong, but the opportunity cost is much, much bigger. And that's what people don't quite understand. You might say, well, you talk about being courageous, you talk about trying new things, you talk about doing new things. That was a new venture you got into, you learned a lot from it. Yes, but what about the opportunity cost that I potentially missed out on, right? So you always have to analyze the opportunity cost. If I get into e-com, I don't get into the thing where I have the advantage in. And the thing where I have the advantage in, I am more probable to see success in. It doesn't mean I can't see success with e-com. I still can, but I have more of a chance of seeing success with this, okay? So that's number one thing I learned about failure. It was the simple fact that I didn't have to fail nearly as much, and I failed because of my ego. And if I simply just took the time to consider where I am physically located, who I know, and what I know, I would have seen success much, much sooner. Now, the other thing, 99% of my success has been due to this trait. Okay? And the 1% has been due to being adventurous / courageous. My intelligence has played almost no role into this. My hard work has played almost no role into this. And I'll explain why right now. My intelligence, I realized in all of the things I was getting into, I didn't know much about. The only thing my intelligence played a role in is in how fast I learned the things that I needed to know. Now, keep in mind, anybody that's really a software engineer is going to have a high IQ. you guys shouldn't have to worry about this metric at all. Okay? When it comes to hard work, right? Busy work, working hard doesn't mean it's productive. I learned that the hard way. I was putting in a lot of hours, 16 to 17 hours a day, on mundane 80% activities, not the 20% that actually drive the wheel. Okay? I realized now I still work about 12 to 14 hours a day, but I do the 20% activities. And frankly speaking, I can afford to work 4 hours a day and still maintain where I'm at, and even grow a little bit very easily. Okay? So it's not only about hard work, it's actually working hard on the things that matter, on the 20%. People call this work smart, not harder. You still have to work hard and you have to work smart, but you have to work hard on the 20% of the things that will actually take you somewhere. Okay? My biggest thing really came from risk taking and going through the bullshit and not giving up. These are the only two things. Everything else, I just trusted myself to be able to figure it out. Because frankly, what does hard work really entail? When people say work hard, I mean, I want it. Like, I am obsessed with it. I want it more than anything else in my life. Of course, I'm going to work hard for it. Like, can I maybe be a little bit more disciplined? Can I put away the distractions? Can I put away my phone, even when I'm recording right now, and not be distracted by it? Yeah. Would that be working harder? Potentially. So maybe I could work even harder, but at the end of the day, I'm still doing the baseline things that I need to do to get to where I want to get to. Okay? Because I want it. It's as simple as that. If you want it, you're going to work hard. Okay? At least harder. Now, with the intelligence thing, all the strategies that you might see, everything that I'm doing, it comes from testing. That's what you don't see on the back end. You don't see how much testing we do, how much split testing we do, be it on YouTube, be it on the back end of my own business. So when people see, oh, that's a really good video, that's a really good idea, that's a really good whatever, they attribute it to my intelligence. But they don't understand that I came to that conclusion because I did previous hundreds, if not thousands of tests that got me to that conclusion. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not discounting my intelligence. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying it's not the biggest lever. It wasn't the biggest lever. It helped me definitely get there faster, but it wasn't the biggest lever. My biggest lever, once again, was just tolerating all the bullshit that happened, right? Because I went through a lot. And frankly, I didn't give up and I just continued forward. And then that other 1% was me being adventurous and courageous enough. But I went to a conference. I talked to the main presenter when nobody else decided to talk to. I bought that course when nobody else wanted to and thought it was a scam. I got that mentorship from somebody when everybody thought he was a scam. So understand that I've been very, very adventurous and courageous. I have been burned before. I've been burned before from courses, from mentorship. I've paid somebody $10,000 for one meeting a month and I've gotten burned from it, right? Put in a lot of money into that. But I'm never afraid to spend my money on things like that, right? I'm never afraid to try new things. I'm adventurous in that sense. I take a risk because I know even if that doesn't work out, the money I can always get back. The money's not my problem. The reason failing is so important, or at least so detrimental, isn't because of the money. Money comes and goes, guys. There's a point in time where you'll understand that. The most important reason for the failure is the time. It's the time you don't have. Okay? It's the time you can't afford to lose. Even one failure that sets you back 7, 8 months is a very long time. Sure, you might learn a lot from it, but you really don't have to fail nearly as much. Just plan things out, curb your ego, take a look at this formula, okay? Now, with regards to pain, stress, bullshit tolerance, it's literally all it is. Think of, let's say, presidents of the countries. Putin, Trump, Brad, all these guys. Think of the top 0 to 1 tech founders, Musk, Zuckerberg, all these guys. Their number one trait is their stress tolerance. So a regular person's everyday stress is probably maybe the rent, maybe they have to go get oil change in their car, they have to set up an appointment for that or whatever the case, right? That's most often not the regular person's stress. Their stress is they have a country to run. They have maybe a country to get out of war. They have a country to get into war. They have to make a decision on behalf of millions and millions of people. And then Musk and those guys, I mean, they make decisions on behalf of billions of people because their products affect billions of individuals. They can change the entire course of the timeline in a case of Musk buying X. Imagine how many butterflies effect it had, right? So they have a lot of stress. If you put a regular person in their workload, you can give them all the same money, all the same advisors. Most people will end up crumbling at that level of stress, at the level of pressure, because it can be too much if you're just instantly exposed to it. That has to get built up over time. Now, there are some people who will naturally be good at it, but that is a very, very small minority. That is the biggest differentiator between people. Those very high successful people is that they're very good at stress tolerance and bullshit tolerance. They don't get caught up in that stuff. They can handle the pressure. And then the 1 other percent is their risk taking. They take a lot of risks. They take a lot of risks because they trust themselves when bullshit ends up happening, which it will, they'll be able to handle it. And that's why you'll see a lot of wealthy, successful individuals who might not be the smartest. Funnily enough, there was an IQ correlation. So if you take a look at IQ and income, right? The correlation is sort of like, to a certain extent like this. But then you'll have outliers over here, which is very interesting. So past, I believe it was, don't take this with a grain of salt. I believe it was around the 250K range, where it was kind of like a linear pattern. And then after that, you started seeing individuals with, I did this backwards, by the way, this should be income. This should be income. This should be IQ. You started seeing that people could still make a lot of money despite being low IQ, which is intelligence is not the primary thing. When you have a degree, if you're going the 9-to-5 route, IQ does matter, okay? Because an engineer or a doctor is going to make a lot more than, let's say, a construction worker. However, a construction business owner is going to make a lot more than a doctor or a software engineer, unless that same doctor or software engineer gets into a business and actually has this trait to go through all the bullshit. Because if they get into a business despite being smarter than this guy, but if this guy has better bullshit tolerance, then the software engineer or the doctor is simply not going to make it, okay? So that's what's so interesting about life and just how everything really comes together. So I wanted to make this quick little portion about this, what I really learned. And my main point is I see so many things about failing, you're one no way from a yes, try. Yes, don't get me wrong. Definitely persist through it, but ask yourself, is your ego holding you back? If so, have you even done something like this? Have you tried to understand what you'll get into? Or did you just want to give entrepreneurship a try for the sake of giving it a try and then failing at it and saying, okay, I did it, didn't work. Think carefully about that. Let's get into strategizing now. So we actually got a 1 of 10, if not mistaken. Yeah, there we go, which is perfect. So we got a 1 of 10. We got a lot more subs. We're growing at a relatively good pace. Not too fast, not too slow. Just enough. Our click-through rate is pretty bad. But that is because we got a lot of impressions, actually. It boosted it a decent amount, but 1.5% is horrid. Need to make better thumbnails. So these ones I'm like trying to do on my own right now. Frankly, because I don't have a lot of time in the day to actually get stuff done. I barely have like 1 hour to record this video, quickly send it to the editor, he edits it, and then uploads it. And then for the thumbs, I just have basic ones that I tell him to do. But we're getting a decent amount of views. This one was a 1 of 10, so we're gonna keep up the upload pace. Oh, we just got a comment. Add timestamps for users' ease. I'm currently 19 years old. My question, the internet is full, like literally full of content on YouTube, tech platforms, paid courses, people having their own website, Udemy, and 1,000 creators. How to choose which one is best for me? So Grim, thank you for the question. The way you choose which one is the best for you is as follows. Actually, maybe I should answer this in the next one because most people won't even see this. No, I'll still answer it here. And then I'll give another one in the next video if need be. The person you want to take advice from, right? Only take advice from someone whose life you would want to have. Maybe not necessarily want to have, but be okay with having. Okay? And essentially, what it entails to is take advice from your future self type of thing. Like, who's the closest to where you want to be in the future, right? If you're taking relationship advice from, let's say, a guru, and you want to be married and have kids, but he's giving you relationship advice and he himself is not married yet, doesn't have kids, and he's just messing around, probably not the best mentor to take relationship advice from. Same exact thing with everything else, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. There's a bunch of different successful entrepreneurs, right? But each of them value different things. Each of them set up their life differently. So they're going to tell you what they think is best. They're going to tell you what they think is right. And most often than not, it's going to lead you to living the same exact life as they are. So understand what you want out of life first and foremost, what you consider to be valuable, what you want your future self to be like, where you want your future self to be like, who you want your future self to be surrounded by, and take a look at everybody on the platform and see who is the closest to that. And take their advice and only take their advice. Don't look at somebody else. You can take a look at the competition just to get a quick little idea of what everybody's saying. However, in terms of if you're going to buy their course, if you're going to get their mentorship, only get it from them. Do not have contradictory information flowing through you, okay? Because you will. If you look enough, you will. You'll always find contradictory information. There's no such thing as like a universal truth that people can just talk about. If there was, we wouldn't have this many different arguments. Some things are universally true, yes, but you'll still have people that disagree with that as well, okay? So take advice only from somebody whose life you would want to have and only choose them. Once you find that person, stick to them like gum and don't let go of them. Bother them, send them as many emails, Instagram DMs, whatever the case, to get their mentorship if they're offering it, and just be honest with them. Be like, look, you're exactly where I want to be. I don't want to listen to anybody else but you, and I'm willing to pay for your time. I want, this amount of time in the day for you to teach me something. That's how I did it. There's a lot of individuals that I wanted to learn something specifically in, and what I did is I'm like, look, I'll buy out 8 hours of your time in a day. Tell me a good hourly rate. Usually I would even offer just $1,000, so $8,000 for the day. And I would go sit down, most often the time at their house, and for 8 hours, just talk and siphon as much information as possible as I could. Because I knew that person was living, let's say, a life that I wanted my future self to live, right? It doesn't have to be exact. Maybe mine is going to live a better life, but it still has to be somewhat representative of it. For example, I want to have a family. I want to have kids. I want to have all these things. So I don't really necessarily want to take advice from somebody who doesn't have any of these, who doesn't have a family. Maybe they just have the wealth and they just have not wealth. They just have the riches. But if they don't have a family, they don't have a good family dynamic, they don't have kids, I'm not interested in that. I don't want to take advice from somebody like that because we're living completely different lives, okay? So take advice from somebody whose life you would want to have. This is my simplest advice that I can give you. Don't take advice from anybody else. And when you do find somebody, take only their advice and really invest everything into that individual to try to get them to help you because you're going to save years, whereas other people won't. So thank you for the question. But in doing so, let me actually bring in the other YouTube here to see how that's going. So we've gotten still a decent amount of views. Our subscriber count is going higher, which means the videos are actually working because people are subscribing. But still growing at a decent enough pace. This one was a 6 of 10. So I guess we'll see how tomorrow's video will perform. We have a Monday video coming out, and we'll go from there. But starting already tomorrow as well on this channel, we'll start getting into more nitty-gritty details of the business on the back end. So as always, appreciate it, folks. Thank you so much for watching, genuinely. If you have any questions whatsoever, leave it down in the comments below and I'll get back to you. As always, have a good one.